So when you won the presidency, you were the warrior for freedom. In fact, this war is for freedom, for freedom of the individual, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom. But a lot of freedoms had to be curtailed, sacrificed in this fight because there's so much focus on the war. Do you see the tension? Do you feel the tension?
There's no tension there. Like, this question doesn't deserve. He should just say next. This is not a real question. Like, this is not a real question that's being asked right now. This isn't real. Like, this is just not a real question. Like, you said that you want to go and fight the Nazis in World War II, but didn't you force soldiers to fight? How could you possibly say you're on the side of freedom and life when soldiers are being forced to murder other people? Don't you see the tension there? Like, no, this is not a real question.
That the sacrifice that had to be made in democracy, in freedom, in fighting this war.
In any case, this war is for our freedom. Generally speaking, to be honest, when you understand, over time, when the war passes, you understand that your main values are at home. This is your home, your children, your love. God willing, parents are alive. And if...
Wait. If your dentist recommends you to get a root canal due to inflammation around said tooth, almost all dentists will recommend a root canal. Fuck you, get tested more. You don't know if the nerve is dead or not. Just because you have a little bit of inflammation doesn't mean you have to have the fucking root completely drilled out of your fucking tooth. You gotta test it if you've got the money for it. Fuck you. I know you're part of Big Dentist, motherfucker. Email me your dental license. This is a dentist. ET, the OP, is always going to give you. He's also going to recommend orthodontia to every single fucking kid that walks into his office. That's a big dental ADA representative in chat. Mark him.
And if not, you understand that your main values are at home. This is your home, your children, your love. God willing, parents are alive. And if not alive, then their memory, visiting their grave. Choosing how to work, how much, preferably choosing where to work. All this is freedom. Freedoms are not just a desire. They are an opportunity. In any case, you are right because war is a limitation of opportunities. In any case, you fight for these opportunities. Your parents and God gave you life, right? You fight for your life. But we need to understand that first there is a war and then martial law is introduced. Martial law is not introduced because someone wanted to. You say, this is not Pinochet, and so on. This is a completely different story. An aggressor came, and according to your legislation, if the border is violated, if there is armed aggression, you have all this written down, long ago written out in legislation. You introduce martial law, and the introduction of martial law everywhere, at all times, means, in any case, a restriction of opportunities. If opportunities are limited, rights and freedoms are restricted, therefore the war itself restricts rights and freedoms. Yes, and you can't do anything about it. We try, honestly, to balance as much as possible.
My fear is getting any interview with you, a hugely progressive cuck in the eyes of maggots, no matter how positive, will do more damage than it could do good. Democrats are already with Ukraine. Trump and his base are who we need to reach. Yeah, but you can't reach, you have to dispel the misinformation. That's what has to happen. You have to fight through the misinformation first, which I think is one of the things that I wish Zelensky had the opportunity to respond to, instead of explaining why martial law, when you're invaded by a fucking superpower, has no tension with fucking freedom. Like we could ask a grade school history teacher this question. We don't need like a world leader who has been thrust into one of the most explosive wars in European history.
We try, honestly, to balance as much as possible. I believe that the business sector works despite the difficulties of the war, and we do everything somewhere, there somewhere to reduce some load. Unfortunately, we cannot reduce taxes. On the contrary, a military tax is used for war. You need to take money somewhere. This, by the way, is about the fact that the US gave us a lot, and Europe too. But compared to how much we needed for the war, this is not all. As for military salaries, you know that we could not pay the salaries of a million-strong army. We could not pay it using the money from our partners. These are all expenses. This is all the money that the country and people have accumulated. You can't do anything. I really want to reduce taxes. I will tell you frankly, I really want to. Well, I think that the whole new tax system, new deregulation, new steps, new reforms, all this.
Do you think conspiratorial right will believe any answer Zelensky may give to any of these questions? Maybe not, but at least somebody would respond to it. I don't hear anybody talk about Ukrainian shit. Nobody even gives a fuck about Ukraine, or didn't seem to for more than a month or whatever after. And all of the scholars, the faux scholars, the fakes like the Mearsheimers or whatever that are all running around taking paychecks from the Kremlin, all the historians seem to back these weird notions of NATO expansionism and Russia feeling threatened on its borders. But there is no center-left establishment that defends the United States or U.S. foreign policy or the safety and security of Europe, because it's all white imperialists who are racist or whatever. So I don't know, like, maybe I've just missed it, but I haven't seen like a strong left-leaning defense of Ukraine from basically anybody, because the people that historically would defend that type of stuff would be Republicans, and the Republicans have lost their moral center or their any righteousness about American foreign policy. So I just haven't seen that as much. Maybe they're out there somewhere. Maybe they have had those conversations, but I don't see it.
This will be after the war. Although there is something to brag about, this is proof. And this is a document, because if you want to get a candidacy for European Union, you must implement the appropriate number of reforms. We do everything. During the war, we voted for many reforms, including anti-corruption, banking reforms, land reforms, major reforms. We started a large privatization, and the war did not stop us. Yes, it slowed down, but we went through a lot.
When do you think you'll hold elections? Because for people who don't know, part of the martial law, elections were suspended, and
Like, these are bullshit ass questions. These are. I hope he asks Putin that question. I will take back every bad thing I've ever said about Lex. If Lex is drilling Putin this hard on, like, hey, so when are you going to hold elections in your country? Like, like real ones, not where you win like 90+% of the vote. Like, when are you going to, like, bro, these are bullshit ass questions.
when do you think you'll hold elections? Because for people who don't know, part of the martial law, elections were suspended and they were delayed and delayed and delayed. And I think the next set of plan is in February.
I don't even think I think that's already baked into the Ukrainian constitution. Like, that's already part of the rule of the country, is that during times of war, I don't think they hold elections. I don't even think Zelensky had to change anything there.
Of 2025. But when do you think there will be presidential elections in Ukraine?
When the war is over, bro. It's such an inappropriate question. Like, that's so inappropriate.
Elections were postponed once. They were not delayed, to be clear. Elections did not take place in 2024. That year, first of all, we need to understand the Constitution. They were scheduled to be held in the spring of 2024. Due to martial law, under the Constitution, you cannot do this. These are the presidential elections. The parliamentary elections did not take place in the fall of 2024, according to the Constitution. Yes, there are security things. There is the Constitution, but there are security things. That is, everyone in Ukraine understands that this cannot be done until the war is over, or legislation needs to be changed. I believe that elections will take place immediately after the end of martial law. This is according to the law. Or members of the parliament need to get together and change legislation, which will be very difficult to do because society is against it. Why is society against it? It is understandable why. Because we want elections that we want to trust. 8.5 million people went abroad. The infrastructure needs to be created for these millions of people to vote. Millions of people in the occupied territories. I'm not even talking about the occupation of 2014. I'm talking about the occupation right now. What to do with these people? This is a difficult question. And one of the most unfair ones is how to vote without having a million soldiers. That is, it is impossible. We need to think about how to change the system if the elections are held in times of war, change the legislation, which should include changes to the voting system. To think about online voting. Everyone is afraid because of certain attacks, like cyber attacks.
Like from Russia.
And so on.
Say
But
it.
we need to think about it. I really think that it's possible that we can end the war in 2025.
In January.
Oh,
We've already agreed on it.
I would very much like to. I would very much like to.
After the war?
And immediately. Yes, immediately. In the year of the end of the war. It's a fact. Why? Because when martial law ends, you can immediately vote in parliament to hold elections. And then everyone will vote. Because there are no restrictive measures. And after they vote, I think elections can be held in 90 days. Something like that. Yes. And this means that immediately after the end of the war, elections may take place in 90 days.
Are you running for re-election?
Oh my God.
Even I don't know, really. I don't know. It is a very difficult question. It depends on how this war will finish. It depends on what people will want. Mostly, it depends on people. First of all, and of course, my family. We had no time to speak about it with my family.
That's not terrible. No, fuck you. It is terrible. There is a propaganda line that Zelensky is a corrupt authoritarian leader that's just utilizing the war in order to indefinitely push off elections so they can further entrench his power and further enrich himself and his family. That's what these questions are aimed towards. Oh, are you going to run again? Are you going to try to keep being president? Oh, you enacted martial law to delay the elections? When are you going to finally fucking hold them? When are you going to finally fucking have elections again? Oh, and you're going to oh, really? Yeah. Like that's what this line of questioning is for.
And of course, didn't have a chance because we don't think about it now.
But he won't ask them honestly. I wouldn't mind if Lex said, hey, some people accuse you of entrenching yourself and gaining more power, whatever. If he was at least honest about it, but he's phrasing them in the most propaganded way possible.
Something, there are a lot of, not a lot of, but enough voices in Ukraine from politicians, opposition, and etc. about this, I guess. But we don't didn't think seriously with my family about it. So this is war. I mean, how to think about what will be after? It's very difficult, really very difficult.
If we look at the field of candidates, maybe you can give your opinion about the set of ideas you see out there, including your own, about the future of Ukraine. As I understand, the candidates include Poroshenko, Zelensky.
Like, you don't even know you don't even know what the country is going to be in. Well, like, or what's going to be left of the country after the war. How could you even have this? How could you even go down this road? Like, I don't even understand how you could expect him to even have a reasonable answer to any of these things. Like, are they going to have Crimea back? Are they going to have access to? Are they going to have any access to water at all? Are they going to, like, how is Russia going to be sanctioned? What's the relationship going to be like with the EU or Russia? Like, how do you even have this conversation?
Luzhny, Arestovich, Budanov, Glitchko, and many others. This is the internet speaking to me. What do you think of the space of ideas that these candidates represent?
You know, I think it can be, and there can be even a bigger number of candidates. Yeah, I don't really know what will be. They have rights to participate if they want to. Yes, if they really want to and can, they...
Does Zelensky know the questions are snaky? I'm not sure because they're working through like 17 different languages here. And I don't know how aware Zelensky is of how corrupted the Western media environment is with all the Russian propaganda and all of the MAGA propaganda that exists. I just don't know. I don't know without being inundated with that type of media. I don't know.
They can go and do what they want, honestly. Most important is, what are they doing now? I think that all these people are the famous Ukrainian people, and it's important for them to do everything they can today, not begin any election campaign. I think this what can divide our people, to have the elections, during the war. I mean, this make steps, speak about elections a lot, make a big mess about it. I think this is not right. That's why I'm not agreeing with some of these people, but they can, and I think that they can, and maybe some of them will, and it's okay. It's normal. It's very normal. Our system differs from the system in the United States. You have two parties, and the parties decide who will be the leader. And in Ukraine, everybody can participate. Let them.
You think you're going to win the debate? You versus Zelensky, Poroshenko, Arestovich, and you decide to run. You think you're going to win the debate? Or you're, again, focused on the war? And
I'm really focused.
This is what I mean also when I say, like, in the U.S., like, everything is like a meme to us. Like, we don't even, like, imagine going to like the Gaza Strip, and you're talking to like Palestinians like moving between camps, and you're like, so do you guys think you're going to vote for Hamas again, or like what's up with that?
On the war, and I think the most difficult debate is what will be brought to the table, and we spoke about it. It will be during the war, how to finish the war. I think that is my goal, because it will be one of my most complicated debates, and for any president who is in a war, of course. But I think this is my goal, to win those debates, and the other things are not for today.
As I said, the dream I have is it's a historic opportunity to make peace, to make lasting peace soon. So I'm glad you're focused on that. Let me ask a question about that a lot of people in the United States think about, and I care a lot about the future of Ukraine, is corruption. This is something you have cared a lot about for a long time. You won the president.
Oh my God, this is such bullshit. Israel-Palestine is an easier conflict, in my opinion, because there are horrible actors on both sides, in my opinion. Not in my opinion, fuck that. That's objective fucking fact. There are horrible actors on both sides of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I can always feel at least a little good that at least no matter who gets fucked over, at least I know somebody bad is getting fucked over at the end of the day. I feel like Ukraine-Russia is so much harder because I've gone on before on this, but there's so much like nobility in the narrative of an ex-satellite Eastern European country trying to join the European Union, trying to fix all of its corruption problems and all of this. Like, it's so much clearer. And Russia, that is like the bully country, the bad guy country with the bad guy leader who engages in the bad guy tactics. And it's a much, much, much clearer right and wrong in this case. And so to hear somebody just be so fucking insanely biased towards it and to do such a partisan propaganda drive-by hit piece is just so disgusting to me.
Future of Ukraine is corruption. This is something.
Remember, corruption is corruption. Fuck. Now I should have just gone back. I don't remember if I pointed all these out before. I'm just so used to hearing them. These are all of the bullshit talking points. Ukraine is super corrupt. Zelensky is super corrupt. They were corrupt before. They're probably going to be corrupt after. They're banning like the Russian language because Zelensky's trying to enrich himself. His wife is buying dresses in New York. They're stealing U.S. money. Remember, all the corruption, the U.S. money is going to Ukraine, and all the companies and the oligarchs are stealing it there and funneling it to Zelensky and all of his oligarchs. Like, all of this is like Russian propaganda talking about. These are all bullshit questions. You have cared a lot about for a long time. You won the presidency in 2019 in big part your message of fighting corruption. But there's a lot of accusations that during war, I mentioned $9 trillion in the United States, war breeds corruption. So can you speak to that, how you have been fighting corruption, and can you respond to the accusations that has been corruption in Ukraine? Also, and again, I'm going to be harsh here, okay? Because I'm going to be very harsh here because it's not acceptable for you to even present a broad claim as a question. You've said you've read countless books. I don't think he's read a single one. And you've expertised yourself in that way. And you claim to speak, albeit not that well, at least one language from the region. You claim to have had family from here. And now you are having a conversation with a world leader here who's involved in this conflict. It can't be that the questions sound like they're from Twitter. How do you respond to claims of corruption? Which claim? What corruption? This is a Twitter question. This is a question my mom or dad would ask. This cannot be the case. You've expertised yourself too much here, and this conversation is too current and important. This isn't a retrospective, and this isn't a hypothetical. This is a leader of a country that is currently in war. It can't be this way. This is insane.
You have been fighting corruption, and can you respond to the accusations that has been corruption in Ukraine?
You know, it's very simple. First of all, we really have a very sophisticated anti-corruption system. Sophisticated not in the sense that it's difficult to understand, but in that it really consists of many elements. It's the most sophisticated in all of Europe. This is another requirement of the European Union. It was a requirement for Ukraine. And for many years, Ukraine was not trusted. I want to tell you that under me, we all voted for bills, all the anti-corruption reforms, almost all reforms, and all anti-corruption bodies today are independent. They work as requested. I still believe that they are not perfect yet. There are many issues. There is a judicial system, but also a judicial reform that our partners, the United States plus the EU, demanded from us. This is all written out. This is written out in specific laws, in specific decrees, in specific decisions. We did this. We've done 99% of this. If something has not been done, it means that it is on the way. But in principle, all this exists, and there is no such system as we have in Europe. To say that we do not have corruption would be lying. We just talk about it openly. We are genuinely fighting against it. Look, we have sitting in our prison, Ihor Kolomoisky, who is the most influential Ukrainian oligarch since independence. And no one could do anything about him. The United States of America wanted to have Kolomoisky, and they went to great lengths because of money laundering, etc. There are criminal cases in the United States, I think in Delaware, something like that. Neither Europe could do anything about it. That is, we did a lot with oligarchs. Russian oligarchs, sanctions were imposed. They were thrown out. Some of them fled the state, but they are all under sanctions. We exchanged some of them for our soldiers, such as Medvedchuk, to whose daughter Putin is godfather. That is, we fought against the strongest influential oligarchs, which are and were in Ukraine, and we eliminated a lot of corruption. Of course, corruption exists in everyday life. It exists, but institutionally, I'm sure that Ukraine will overcome all this. This takes a little time. I would say honestly that, listen, what we call corruption, and in some state of the world is called lobbyism, but this does not mean that there is no corruption there. Let's take the aid you mentioned during the war. First of all, we have no money. We have no money except for the war. We received weapons from the United States of America, from Europe. If we take, for example, money from the United States of America, during all this time of the war, around 177 billion have been voted for or decided upon. 177 billion. Let's be honest. We have not received half of this money. The second point, which is very important just as an example, is it corruption?
I don't think the translation here is rough. I don't know what he's saying in, I don't know if he's speaking Russian, English, Ukrainian, but like it's not all cash money, right? He could be saying value or worth of whatever. But
around 177 billion have been voted for or decided upon. 177 billion. Let's be honest. We have not received half of this money. The second point, which is very important just as an example, is it corruption? The first question, whose corruption? This is the second. Here is just one small example for you. When the United States began to transfer us weapons, it was American money, but American weapons. Money for these weapons. As a president, I had cargo jets. Not in Ukraine because of the war. We moved them very quickly to Europe. We had cargo. We have good cargo fleet. Very good. Because of Antonov. So I asked American side to grant me the opportunity because our jets are at another, yeah?
I think he's also saying that of that promised cash involved, it's not even given yet. Usually it's promised, maybe because it hasn't been released yet. That's
airfield.
Possible, yeah.
And I asked America to give me the opportunity to use our jets for transfer. Not to pay a lot. To whom? To your companies. To American companies. No, I didn't get this opportunity. My jets stayed put. And the United States jets, cargo jets, move these weapons. But everywhere you have to spend money. So we could get more weapons, but we have to pay for this very expensive fleet. My question, is this corruption or not? Or lobbyism? What is it?
You mean corruption on the part of the U.S. companies?
Yes, making such decisions.
Yes, I got it.
The lobbying for such decisions involves some companies that make these decisions. But I can't be open about it, and I couldn't speak loudly about it. I didn't want, nor did I intend to cause any scandals to arise, because otherwise you can freeze the support, and that's it. And that's why when we talk about corruption, we must ask who is involved. If we had 177, and if we get the half, where's the half? If you will find the second half, you will find corruption.
There is a
My guess is when it comes to the release of congressional aid or whatever, it probably happens in stages and it's not all made available immediately, is my guess. One of the things is also like super mindfucky here that you have to imagine is that like the president that's taking over in the White House in Washington is the same guy that tried to extort you a few years ago in order to get you to lie about investigations into his political opponent's son. That's also like a whole macro layer that's being like Zelensky has a lot of ground to make up because Trump and Giuliani were begging him to engage in like political malfeasance basically in order to get him to win the 2020